when I got introduced to Megan, I'm thinking, okay, another coach, and yeah, maybe she could be a speaker. And then I started talking to her, and it was like, wow, this girl's got it on. She's so pedigreed. Her education is unbelievable. She's made it her mission to teach people and bring education in various ways to the world. And it started off in public education, and now it's with professionals over the past decade or so. And um, she's doing something pretty awesome, and it's different, it's unique, and it's um, it's fresh. And I think she's going to have so many insights for us. And we're really excited about that. Megan, thank you for being with us from the bottom of my heart. And I'm turning over the stage to you, dear.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. That was such a warm welcome. That made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So I'm super excited to be with you all. As I do a quick intro, I'm going to go ahead and screen share here, and it will kick you out, Christy. I know you were looking forward to that, but all right. Can everyone see my screen okay? Perfect. So I'm excited to be with you all today. As Christy shared, I did start in the education world. I actually started as a classroom teacher and I retired from the school system, actually in the Chicagoland area, as a superintendent. So when I left the superintendent position, when I left the education space, I said, what do I want to do next? And I really had to look within and look at what my values were and look at what was important to me as I figured out what was next for me. I knew that I wasn't actually ready for retirement. I was too young to retire. I was too passionate. I had too many things left to say. And I needed to provide for my son. I am in the true sandwich generation. I have older parents that I take care of and my son that I take care of. So I needed to make a decision for myself that was aligned to what I wanted in my life moving forward. And that's what I did. I took all of the information I'm going to share with you today to find the right job for me. In my case, it was about creating that job. But in many cases, it's also about finding the job that is the perfect fit for you, that aligns with your values, that makes you feel like you're not actually working. And I know that that sounds so idealistic and it's so hard in today's market. And that's exactly what I work with people to do, to find their values, to identify their values, and then to search out a position that matches those values and to also allow a company the opportunity to bring you onto the team. Because if you are matched with their values, they know that you will be a quality, phenomenal member of their team. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today is not just about finding a job, but we're in 2026. It's a difficult market. It's about finding a job that feels right to you, that makes you want to stay, and that makes the company say, oh my gosh, who would we have been without you on their team? And that's what we're going to dive into. So I am coming to you from the polar vortex of Michigan right now. I'm not in Chicagoland anymore. I heard from Christy earlier that Chicago's actually colder than us right now, but we are in the negatives and the wind chill is in the, I think, negative 20 something. So it's extremely cold, but I'm warm and cozy right now in my home and I have my dog curled up on my lap because that just helps with the warmth factor. So let's go ahead and jump in. I do have a partner from my team on the call as well, who's going to be dropping little pieces in the chat as we go. But I know that all of you, or most of you, probably received the workbook already. It was emailed out to you. Please know that that workbook is not meant for you to fill in the blank as we're going today. That workbook is meant as more a reflection guide for after the conversation or as we're talking today, as I'm sharing pieces with you. I will let you know this is on page 2 or page 3, so that if that activity, if that idea that I speak to is resonating with you, you can dive deeper into that after our session. So I'm so excited to be with all of you. Let's go ahead and jump in. So we already went through some of the basics, but as you can tell from this image, it's all about trying to figure out what path is the right path for you. It's not just about finding the job, all of you have so many skills and so many things to bring to a company. And sometimes it's about determining which company deserves your skills and your attributes. So we know that the job market landscape can be extremely frustrating. We've heard all of the stats. In today's call, I'm not going to talk about those statistics. My job is not to give you all of the doom and gloom. My job is to help you see the possibilities and to help you realize that you are enough as you present in the job market and the right position is waiting for you. And we're going to talk about how you can find that right position through some things you might already be doing, and some things, my hope is that might be new to you or something that you hadn't necessarily thought about. The first principle I want to bring in is the idea of authentic leadership, because especially in today's climate, it can be difficult to be our authentic selves. It can be difficult to share exactly how we feel about things. See, my background in education started with the idea of wanting to make sure that every single child in my classroom is seen, heard, welcomed, and valued. And now, as I've transitioned into the speaking world and as an author, my goal is to make sure that everyone in the audience knows that they deserve to be seen, heard, welcomed, and valued. And when I'm speaking to people who are looking for a position, it's about ensuring that whatever position you go to next, whatever company you decide to go to next, that they are willing to see you, that they are open to hearing your thoughts, that they are welcoming you, and that they value everything you bring to their team because you deserve that. And it's important to figure out how you can find that. So, what we're going to do today is we're going to look first at the authentic leadership piece and why it's important. So, what we determine as authentic leadership are six core principles. We're not going to go into those six core principles because what I want to focus on is how you can find that more than how you can be that, but knowing that they go together. We know that when you are authentic, you foster trust. And not only are you trusting, you are trustworthy. And that's difficult in today's day and age. And my hope as we go through this is that the pieces we talk about are not just about how you can find the very best job for you, but also how you can find the very best community to surround yourself with as you do that. You have a great community here. I love the energy as people were coming into the room and the work that PRG and their team is doing, that Christy and Cindy are doing, is all about supporting you. It's about fostering that trust, fostering that engagement. So you're on the right path, but it's about continuing that path and remembering that even when it's difficult, you deserve to be seen, heard, welcomed, and valued. And it sounds like this is the place to be exactly that. The next step and the first activity that I provide a little bit more detail on in your workbook is the idea of aligning your values with your goals. So in the workbook, I give you a step-by-step on how you can identify your top 5 values. Because I believe that most companies have values. But as I work with individuals, because we also do individual coaching as well, but when I work with individuals, I will ask them, what are your values, your personal values? And I'm going to ask all of you that same question as you're thinking through things. Feel free to put it in the chat if you have a core value, or maybe you have multiple. But if you don't have core values for yourself, that is the first step to figure out if there's alignment. Because if you don't know what your core values are, how can you determine if you're aligned in your core values? So I want you to figure out, what are those core values. I see David put in service, purpose, leadership, building trust with people, one team, transparency, trust, authentic, people focused trust. I see trust coming up a lot. See, for our company and for my values, it's about courage, because I want people to be courageous and I want to promote courageousness. It's about curiosity. I want people to ask questions. And I want to be able to ask questions. See, I'm a very inquisitive person. As a child, I was so inquisitive, I was often told, oh my gosh, stop. And as adults, we lose that curiosity often because as children, we're told to stop. But what I want all of us to lean into, if it fits you, is to go back to that childlike curiosity. Because it's only through asking questions that we identify and figure out what it is that surrounds us in this world. It's also about being heart focused and accountable. One of my core values is to network. I believe that every single person has something that can bring some light to my life. So I never miss an opportunity to introduce myself or to meet someone new. It's also about genuine ingenuity or being genuine and authentic and ultimately to empower. But I encourage you, it looks like a lot of you have put some values in the chat, which is phenomenal. But there's an activity on page 2 of your workbook to really help you identify what are your core values. And then to dive deeper into your core values and determine, are there core values that you have sacrificed in the past? And how can you make sure that you don't sacrifice that in your next position? Because it's not just about finding a job, it's about finding the right one. And I know that sometimes that can be difficult. I've been there. When I first left the superintendent position, I didn't have a position for a while. I had to decide what was I looking for, what was I going to do, and I admit I applied for other positions. I didn't necessarily align with my values. I actually took another position for a while and it wasn't aligned to my values and I was miserable. I was making money, I was getting a paycheck, I was able to provide, but I was miserable. And I realized that I needed to find something that would allow me to be whole and to be full and pay the bills at the same time. And that's where I went back to my values. Okay. We'll go ahead and put the workbook back in the chat again. We'll put it in a couple times. Thank you for asking. And then the next piece is when you're authentic, it encourages resilience. We are in a shifting environment, whether it's our socio-political climate, whether it is the incorporation of AI into every aspect of our lives. People are saying that they're losing jobs because of AI. What I say to that is you're not necessarily losing your job because of AI. You are losing your job to someone who uses AI. So if you're not utilizing AI, we need to lead into that. We need to realize that AI is critical. It is important for us. When we're authentic with that, when we recognize that, we're able to be resilient in that factor. The other piece I will say is that no person can ever be replaced by AI because of the human element. There are aspects of what we do as humans that will always be better than AI. And I encourage all of you to lean into that humanity of it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about core values, but when we're thinking about our core values, I want you to identify your personal core values. Don't think back about the last company you were in and their core values. What is important to you as a person? Okay. I want to go through now and I want to talk about some red flags and green flags when you're looking for a position. So, some red flags are those things that you should be aware of. And when you're thinking about what you need to be aware of, when you go into a position and it's not the right fit, it will be detrimental to not only you, but also to the company. You will be disengaged. You will not feel like you are a valued member of the team. And you can start to identify some of those pieces as early on as the interview process. Before you even apply for a position, you can go online, check out their website, go in their LinkedIn, check out what they're doing. Take that time to really dive into what you do as an individual and what you're looking for. But again, bringing it back to your core values. Because when you find a place where you belong, when you find those green flags are places where you feel like you are seen. They don't just say hi to you as they walk down the hallway and keep on walking, but they actually stop and say, "No, really, how are you today?" Because I'm sure I'm not the only one in the room right now who has done that, where you've walked down the hallway and said, "Good morning, how are you?" and kept on walking. Because it's human. We've all done it. But a green flag is acknowledging that they actually do see you, that they want to hear you, that they welcome you into their environment. Your first day on the job, do they actually welcome you? Before you even start the job, do they actually welcome you to the organization? And first and foremost, do they value what you bring to the table? Because I've heard a lot about your organization. I've had great conversations with Christy. And I will tell you, I know that all of you bring so many phenomenal assets to the organization that you are about to go into. Don't let those assets go to waste, and don't let anyone undervalue or just not value who you are. So, I want to talk a little bit about some practical networking strategies that will align with your values. And there's going to be three specific pieces that I'm going to talk about here. Now, in your workbook, if you want to dive a little bit more into the networking strategies, it's going to be on pages 3 and 4 if you want to take notes or if you want to look at that. But I'm going to talk through some of them now as well. And I would love to hear, I've seen so many of you put in the chat that you have a LinkedIn, you're asking people to connect with you. But when you're doing your LinkedIn work, when you are asking for those connections, what I'm going to encourage you to do is to seek out connections and not just wait for connections to come to you and not just wait for groups like this to drop your LinkedIn profile and hope connections come. What I'm going to ask you to do with LinkedIn is once you have established your values, once you have taken a look and really identified what you're looking for in your next position, consider typing those in the search bar of LinkedIn. Or consider typing those search terms into ChatGPT and say, I'm looking for a company that is hiring that values, and then put in your values. It's not going to be 100%, but it gives you a starting point to then be able to go into LinkedIn and connect with people from those companies or identify companies that you haven't even heard of or that you're not even aware of that might align with your values. The next piece outside of LinkedIn is to attend industry events and workshops. Now, I'm going to give some very personal examples because this is the one of the three that I have found to be the most helpful for me. And the reason why this is the most helpful because I have been able to identify organizations and associations that align with my values, and then I connect with people first. So, for example, I recently became a B Corp. What that means is my company is certified as a B Corp, which is minded towards social justice and towards the social good of the economy. It's not just about how much money we bring in, it's about how much impact we are making in the world. It's a global certification, and it's something that means a lot to me. I've been working through this and really going through this for a long time. And I realized as I was leaning into my values in my networking, in my associations, in my events, I was meeting more and more people who were certified as a B Corp as well. And that was the spark for me to say, I need to be a part of that community. So I went through the process of becoming certified as a B Corp. I am now surrounded by people who have similar values and ideals about how business needs to be done. I share that story because depending on your values, what matters to you, you can then search out other companies who are B Corp certified. If you are extremely invested in the state of our union, if you are invested in a specific piece, you can find companies who are also invested in that, whatever your values are. Okay. Another example is you can become a member of local chambers, not necessarily just geographical chambers, but chambers based on identities. So I say that because my background is all around identity work within education, everything else. When we talk about being seen, heard, welcomed, and valued, it's about acknowledging who you are, every aspect of yourself. So I am a part of different associations based on those identities. It is extremely important to me, and I am very honored to be a woman and to be in the space as a woman. I want to uplift and empower other women in the space. It doesn't mean that I don't want to empower men. It simply means that I want to uplift and be surrounded by people who can uplift me, who are also women. That's one example. There are other groups like the Veterans Group. You can become part of a veterans networking group. If being a veteran is important to you, consider joining an association for veterans. There are different types of networking groups based on different parts of your life. So, this group here is a great opportunity to meet other people who are looking for a career change or potentially looking to make a transition or a shift. There are other groups that are maybe geographically located. Right now, I'm hearing people all over the country in this group. So it's not geographically located, but you might be able to find a local group that is geographically located. I'm in one here locally in Detroit. We're having breakfast together next Wednesday. That is a local networking group. There are global networking groups, there are identity based networking groups. Find associations. If you're in the HR space, consider SHRM or HRCI. All of those pieces, I'm just giving some general ideas of what that looks like. So it's looking at identity based networking, it's looking at local geographic based networking, and it's looking at point of life networking. What I mean by that is similar to this group. This is a point of life networking group. A new parents is a point of life networking group. Sandwich generation, like I am, is a point of life networking group. It's not one that you will stay in forever. It's one that transitions. But all of those different networking groups will help you find your people. And when you find your people is when you will find your position. And ultimately, through all of this, you will find yourself. And that is what my biggest passion in life is to find myself and to help others find themselves. And then last but not least, within these three pieces of networking, I want to talk about the importance of personalized messages. Now, we've heard this before. Make sure you say their name, thank them for their time. What I'm going to give you an additional insight on is think of something that sparked a connection between the two of you. A conversation, a joke, something that you have in common, something that you spoke about. I had a conversation yesterday with someone who is also in a very cold area. So I said, "Oh my gosh, you're in the polar vortex with me." That is something I remember. When I was networking, I believe it was last week, I was at a large matchmaking event and I was meeting with a large corporate client. I knew that they were meeting with so many people. So when I first got on the call, I said, "Hi, I'm Megan. I'm the authenticity amplifier, but I'm also the purple lady." And I say that because I always wear purple. It was something that they can remember me by. I have the purple wall behind me. I'm always wearing purple. I have purple glasses. I'm the purple lady. But I will tell you that when I email them back and say it's the purple lady checking in, they don't forget who I am. And that's what I mean with follow up with personalized messages. When you meet people, find something that makes you unique, not just about your job market or your position or what you do. Find something that makes you unique that people can remember you by. If you have a really interesting pair of glasses, wear those and make a point of those really interesting glasses when you meet them. I know you're going to meet lots of people. Remember me as the one with the zebra glasses or whatever it is. I knew someone who was always, she was the pineapple lady. She wore a pineapple lapel pin. She was the pineapple lady. Everyone remembered her. They might not remember her name, but they remember the pineapple lady. So I say those things because it's about sparking a connection. People don't always hire you. And actually, right now, it's even less. They don't hire you because of your skills. They hire you because they think you will fit in their organization. And I want it to be a two-way street. It's not just about whether or not they're going to hire you. Are you going to hire them to be your next employer? It has to be a two-way street. Okay. So I want to walk through the interview process really quickly. When we walk through the interview process, there's three main pieces. You all know this, but I'm going to give just one or two tips about that. Okay. So when you're doing the pre-interview, make sure you go to their website, their social media. What I want you to look at, because ultimately, if you find the right job, you'll stay there longer and you won't be in a position of transition again in the future, at least not for a while. But what you want to look for before you even go for the interview, before even the application process, is I want you to look at the company's mission and vision and values and ensure that they line up with yours. They don't have to be 100% synchronous, but what they need to be is not in contradiction to your values. So when you're looking at their mission and their values, make sure that it's not going to contradict what you want to see for your next position because you have set up your values if you work through that piece in the workbook. And then during the interview, I want you to ask questions. Go back to your childlike curiosity. If you are someone who values curiosity and the person who is interviewing you seems annoyed that you're asking questions, that probably is not a good fit. For me, I ask a lot of questions. I used to come to interviews with questions. If the person that I was interviewing with did not like those questions or said, we don't have time for questions right now, or you'll have a chance to ask questions later, I knew that was not the right fit for me. Not everyone feels the same way. There are some people who don't ask a lot of questions. They take information as it comes. There's no right or wrong, but it's about identifying who you are. But during the interview, you want to do that. You also want to say, I did some research, I saw this, I'd like to know more about. Because it tells the organization that you did your research and that you're not just looking at how big they are or where they're based, you're looking at what's actually important to you. And then for post interview, make sure you share your appreciation. When I'm interviewing for my company, I will tell you that if the person that I interview does not send a follow up, either an email or something, if they do not send a thank you note, they do not make it to the next round, no matter how good the interview was. That's just me. That's not where I'm at, right? That's not where everyone has to be, but that's me. I do not bring anyone to the next level of my interview process if they do not send a follow-up note. You might have other employers out there who are similar, but make sure you send that follow-up note, even if it's just an email. A personalized note is always better, but an email is fine. The one thing that you could do, because snail mail is literally like a snail, especially nowadays, it feels like it's taking longer to get mail to and from places than it ever has. Maybe send an email and say, I also put a note in the mail because we all know that handwritten notes are a thing of the past. Make a joke about it, whatever it might be, but send an email for the instant component. Okay. So that is again, these are all pieces I'm sure you've heard, right? I want us to talk about the scarcity idea and the scarcity mindset, especially because right now in our job market, it's very, very difficult. But I want us to move away from the scarcity mindset and into the intentionality mindset, which means that you are ultimately being intentional about finding the right position. Okay. I want you to transform your job search approach so that you can find the exact right position. Don't just look for any position, look for your next position. So I'm going to give you some three main pieces of how you can do that. Again, these are just different tidbits. I want you to find the one thing that we talk about today that you feel will benefit you the most and go into the workbook and dive in. Okay. So the first piece about recognizing about the scarcity to intentionality mindset is you have to recognize whether or not you're in that scarcity mindset. Are you feeling anxious? Are you afraid that you won't find the next position? Are you worried that it's just not out there? Do you get discouraged sometimes? All of those are human emotions. I would venture to think that all of us have been there at one point. At the same time, I want to encourage you all to acknowledge it, recognize it's there, and then move through that. And how you do that is you embrace abundance. There's a couple things that I say to myself, and I'll encourage you or invite you to consider it for yourself as well. But I get up every morning, and before I even get out of bed, I say to myself, I deserve all the good things that happen today. I deserve all the good things that happen today. And when I encounter something that seems really difficult, what I tell myself is this gets to be easy. Even if it's difficult, this gets to be easy. It's kind of like that easy button that we saw in so many of the commercials, but this gets to be easy because ultimately you have the opportunity to determine how you're going to react to every situation that happens. And I know that situations happen that are difficult. I know that life is difficult at times, and I know that you have community around you and you have the ability and the power to do so many phenomenal things. And if you can just simply take that one shift in your head to embrace abundance, not 100% of the time, it doesn't happen. But if you can come up with a few simple statements like, this gets to be easy, or I deserve every good thing that happens to me, or I know that the perfect company is waiting for me. I know that my dream job is there. And if you're curious about what your dream job is, maybe you're like, okay, I say, yes, my dream job is there, but I don't even know what my dream job is. I actually give you some prompts on how to identify your dream job on page 1 of the work. So as you're going through all of these pieces, I want you to think about what are those small shifts that you can take to embrace abundance because you deserve it. You deserve every good thing that happens to you. And then I want you to set intentional job search goals. Now, what I mean by this is intentional that what you can control. So, for example, don't say, I will be in a position by February 15th, because you can't necessarily control that. But what you can control are the leading factors up to that. So, I will connect intentionally with 5 people on LinkedIn every week that line up with my values. I will send 5 personal emails to people every week that line up with my values. I will have one intentional conversation with a recruiter every week. Those are things that you can control. You're going to send out the emails. You're going to send out the LinkedIn request. You're going to do all of these things, and then you're going to follow up with that. But those are intentional goals. And make sure those goals are lined up with your values. What do you truly want? What do you truly see yourself doing that will make you feel complete? And one of the last goals that I want to reach out to you about, or one of the last things I want you to think about, is how you can create that personalized action plan. Now, this again is in the workbook as well, and this is on page. I just want to look really quickly here. This is on page 7. So, the final page of your workbook about how you can create your personalized action plan. So, first and foremost, you're going to define your career goals. And again, all of these are things that we've worked on throughout the workbook, things that I've shared with you, but you're going to define your career goals first. And I want you to really focus on what you want to achieve in your career. What type of work environment do you want to work in? And then after you define your goals, then you're going to identify the target companies. Oftentimes people will say, I want to work for fill in the blank. I want to work for Google. I want to work for Microsoft. They say a company first, but I want you to start a little bit before that with thinking, what type of role do you want? Do you want a hybrid role? Do you want an in-person role? What types of work do you want to do? Do you want to be behind a computer or with people? What type of role do you want? Who do you want to work with? Who do you want to serve? And then you look at which type of companies align with what you are looking for. And then after that, you create your timeline for applications. And when you're thinking about your timeline for applications, it's thinking through What do I want to accomplish when? Are there any openings in any of these dream companies? If there's not openings, then maybe it's a timeline for how you're going to make connections with people on LinkedIn. Now, I will also say this because I've talked a little bit about LinkedIn. When we're thinking about LinkedIn, some of you might say, okay, I don't have the advanced version of LinkedIn. I can't do these advanced searches. I don't have the advanced LinkedIn either. There are ways to search on LinkedIn that do not require you to have the advanced search. So if you have the advanced version, that's great. I think it's called Sales Navigator. That's great. You can definitely do that. You can have that advanced version. But it's not necessarily needed to be able to find people in your environment. And yes, absolutely. There's always workarounds. So I want to ultimately leave all of you with this. As you're thinking about your dream job, what does that look like? Take a moment to really think about what your dream job looks like. What's there? What's around you? Are you working from home? Are you working in an office? What impact are you making? Are you impact driven? Are you financially driven? There's no right or wrong answer, but put it out there. Because I believe that when you put something out there into the universe, when you make all of your decisions aligned to your personal values, you will find exactly what you're looking for because you deserve all the good things that happen. You deserve to find the position that sees you for who you really are and not who society tells you you need to be. You deserve to be heard and ultimately heard, not just listened to. You deserve to be welcomed into the environment. And if you find the right position, they will welcome you in because they will feel like you're already one of theirs. And you deserve to be valued because all of your skill sets are way too valuable not to be valued or to be taken for granted. So lean into that. So as I wrap up for the day, because I want to make sure I am wrapping up at the quarter till mark, when I wrap up for the day, I want to leave you with just one last thing. I do have a survey code up here, and the survey code is meant specifically to gather your feedback, but it's also an opportunity if you would like to have any further conversations. I'm offering a free strategy call for anyone who wants to dive in. Maybe you're confused. What are my values? What does this mean? I want to help you find your values. That brings me joy in life. One of my biggest joys is helping others. If you look at my top strengths finder, if you look at any of those pieces, my number one indicator everywhere across the board is helpful and supportive. I want to be supportive of each and every one of you as you go through this journey. I want you to know, and not just know, but truly believe that you are worthy, that you are enough, and that it's not just about finding any job, it's about finding the job that truly fits who you are and what you can bring to this world. So I will go ahead and I believe we have the link in the chat as well. But at this point, I just want to see if there's any questions, comments,
Yeah,
concerns.
and put your questions in the chat. We have some great time left with Megan. You know, Megan, again, I'm not surprised how wonderful this was. You know what's fascinating? It's like you are sharing with people what we didn't even realize we needed to hear.
Mhm.
And, you know, because job search is hard. And I tell people, you know, we're in job search all the time, but you know, when you get a job, you can take your foot off the gas. We're in this, you know, all the time being in sales. It's like it's you know, but it's a choice that we've made. And but you know, to validate the feelings that people feel going through job search is so important. And I love what you said, seen, heard, welcomed, and valued. I mean, that's that nugget of you know, really ultimately what we want to experience with everything.
Yeah. Thank you for pulling that out, Christy. I think another piece with that is it's not just about we want to be seen, heard, welcomed, and valued, but we want to provide an environment where others can feel seen, heard, welcomed, and valued. And I know that for myself, it has been easier for me to provide an environment for others to be seen, heard, welcomed, and valued. But it has been more difficult for me to be in an environment where I feel like I deserve to be seen, heard, welcomed, and valued. And that was my journey. And that was how I use a lot of these conversation points to come in is all of us are at different stages. And I know growing up, there was a lot of stories, right, that make us who we are. But growing up, I never felt like I was enough. So now my whole mission in life is to ensure that no one else has to feel like they're not enough.
That's very clear. It is
Mhm.
absolutely clear. And, I think growing up is hard, right? And I talk about, I have granddaughters who are in school, and, it's like school years can be brutal for
Mhm.
people, and especially girls. I mean, yes, for boys as well, but man, it can be brutal, and it can impact you in ways that, as an adult, that you really don't even realize. And
Mhm.
so all of this is allowing you to bring things to the surface
Yeah.
kind of recapture some of, maybe what you were, you know, thinking when
Yeah.
you were younger. And you said another thing. It's that childlike curiosity. How
Mhm.
I don't even know that most of us allow ourselves to be that
Because
curious.
society has told us that it's not okay. So, one of the biggest components that we focus on is that it's about breaking free from the boxes that society has put us in. We're told as adults we shouldn't have childlike curiosity. We're told as adults that we have to be more serious, right? Take things more seriously. All of those things can be true and not redact or eliminate the other side of it, right? So we can be curious and still be knowledgeable at the same time. I think as adults, we learn that if we ask too many questions, it looks like we don't know. And it's bad to not know, right? But I will tell you the people I respect the most who are willing to say, I don't know. But I think that's where that curiosity is gone. So, how we can lean back into that curiosity is you have those questions in your brain. You're just not allowing them to come out your mouth, right?
Well,
Because we
you're
all
right.
have
And
those
we're afraid
thoughts,
to, right?
right?
It's like we're afraid of being judged,
Hmm. And
for
that's the
having
whole
those
point.
questions.
Yeah. And Christy, that's a lot of like our conversations, right? Like when we were speaking, it was about the judgment. And my work historically has always been in the social justice and DEI space. And that's where the seen, heard, welcomed, and valued comes in. And with the socio-political climate, there has to be a pivot in language, right? And it's the afraid of judgment. And my number one core principle, it's different from a value, but my core principle is that guilt, shame, and blame are the glue that hold prejudice and stigma in place.
Mm.
We are ashamed to ask questions that we feel like we should know the answer to. And should is rooted in shame. So, how can we overcome that? And one of the best pieces to do that is first to acknowledge and recognize that we have those questions in our head. And even if we think we should know the answer, there's going to be someone else in the room who has that question. The only way we can truly identify and move forward is if we ask the question so we can get the answer.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, somebody asked a question. There's all kinds of tools designed for people to identify their strengths and values. Are there any that you'd recommend?
So there's a couple different tools that I actually use with my team and some of our clients. I would separate the two though. So strengths are those things that maybe you don't even recognize within yourself, right? Or maybe they're stronger than you even realize. And I would say probably the most well-known one would be Clifton Strengths Finder. It's very well known. It gives you very specific details. I think the SDI or Strengths Development Inventory is also a very good one. I will separate out values because I do not believe that there is any assessment that can determine your values as well as you personally can. So for values, I would not use an assessment. I would use a deep dive of specific reflection questions. And if anyone's interested in that, just shoot me an email and I can send that over to you. But there's specific reflection questions that will walk you through how you can determine what your personal values are. But I would not use an assessment. I would use reflection techniques, journal prompts, because ultimately you're the only one that can determine your values and feel that within. But I will say that when you're doing that work, I want you to take aside what you think society wants you to answer for values, because I will tell you that most people will say, well, I have to have honesty and trust in my values because society tells me that's really important. If it's not as important to you, it doesn't mean that you like liars. If your core value isn't honesty, it doesn't mean that you like liars. It just means it's not one of your core values. And there's nothing wrong with that. So we have to take away some of that shame that is sometimes internalized within ourselves of what should be our core values or what should be our next job title. And I will say this because I know a lot of you in the room are very high level executives. Sometimes when we're in that job transition as a high level executive, we feel like we should go for a big job because we've been in a big job. But sometimes your heart and your desire might want you to go into a nonprofit or the education world because you are shifting into a different role in your life. And that's okay. I went from a superintendent of schools to a solopreneur to now a business owner and a speaker and all of those things. But when I first made the transition, I went from superintendent to unemployed to solopreneur, taking jobs as I could. And that was a huge shift. And I will
Ego
tell you, for the
wise
first five
too.
or 6 years, my family told everyone I was unemployed, even when I had my company, because they didn't get it. Right. But that's a societal picture and window that they put on me instead of what I allowed myself to exude into the universe.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Bill asks, when we ask questions in the interview, shouldn't we have an appropriate question for the place in the interview, the level of person that we're speaking with, and the place in the interview process?
So, what I encourage is if they do not at the end ask you, do you have any questions? The best interviewers will always ask that question. It's a very critical final question. Do you have any questions for me? But if they don't ask that before, like if they're saying, okay, time to go, then you just say, I have one quick question if I could. Right. So you're going to ask for permission because that's going to give you insight. If they like, oh, we don't have time for that, then you already have your answer. You don't need to ask the question. Right. But you just say, I have one quick question if you could. And you're going to want to have a couple different versions of the question that gets to the heart of what you're looking for. But you want a couple different versions, a version that would take longer for them to answer and a version that would be pretty quick for them to answer. Because depending on, okay, we're out of time, ask the quick one so they don't get annoyed. You want to honor their time. But if you have a little bit more time, ask the more intense ones. So, for example, you could ask a question like, I have one quick question, if I could. I saw on your website that you have a whole section about your vision and values. Do you feel like those actually live through in your organization? And if they look at you like deer in headlights, then no. The answer is no. They don't live through their organization. They don't even know they exist, right? But if they then go, oh my gosh, yes, we do, and they give you an example, or if you have more time, you can ask, what is your favorite core value? And I know that sometimes that can put the person on the spot because if they don't know them, but that will give you your answer if they don't know them. Because if the values are just on the website and not embedded in the organization, people will know that. And again, it's up to you whether it's important. And if it's not important that they know their values, but it's important that they live their values, you can ask the question of, I saw that honesty was one of your values. What does that look like for this role? So you give them the answer. You tell them honesty is one of your core values. In case you didn't know, it is. It's on your website, right? You're giving them the answer, but then you're asking them, what does that look like for this role that I'm applying for?
That's great. You talked about set intentional goals, and and so many people say, okay, one of my goals is to have a job by June. Well, and you're absolutely right. Setting goals that people have control over. And I
Hmm.
really like how you mentioned it's like, connect with 5 people a week and select them. Um and that seems to be kind of a shift because, the setting of goals um, typically involves, I'm gonna have this at this time.
Hmm.
Um, it seems like that sets you up for success. I mean, it does in a pretty obvious way. Um, and it can align with, ultimately you wanting a job by June or whatever it is.
Right. So, how you set that up is the top of your paper is what you want to accomplish, which might be, I want to have a job by this time, right? That might be that's your top of paper. But then you have all of the leading indicators that will get you to that point. So, if I have any
Mhm.
people in the call who's done sales training, there's leading indicators, right? So, you have, if I want to hit this number of revenue, I know that I need to have this many clients. And if I need this many clients, I know I need to reach out to this many prospects. And if I reach out to this many prospects, I know I have this many leads, right? So you have to backwards map that. It's the same thing with goals. It's why New Year's resolutions don't typically come to reality because it's this lofty piece of I'm going to lose 25 pounds by the end of January or whatever it might be, but then there's no action steps of how you're actually going to get there. So with a job, I'm going to make this amount of money by this date with this job. Well, how are you going to get there? Do you even know where that exists? Right? My son is in high school. We're getting ready to do the college tour and all of that. And I said, "Well, what's your purpose for going to college?" He's like, "To get a job." I said, "What kind of job do you want?" I don't know. I said, "Well, why is that job important to you?" Right? So we've gone through that whole pattern, but it's having to work backwards so that he knows why he's doing something. And all of you on the call, you need to know why you're looking for that position. Why is that position the dream position? Right? I heard people in a networking call yesterday say, put it in the universe that you want to meet someone from this company, right? And someone knows someone who knows someone who can get you there. But what I asked everyone to think about is don't just tell me the dream company, that big fish. Tell me why that's your big fish. Because I might know of another company that fits the criteria of that big fish without being that big fish. And it's the same thing with jobs. Instead of telling people, I want to be the next, say, I want a job that lets me do blank. And you can say the name of the big fish, but then say, I'm open to other fish. I'm open to other opportunities, but this is what's really important to me.
That's great. That's great input. And then the other thing is find your people, find your position. Networking is something that I've always found people steer clear of mostly. And part of it is they don't know like why they're networking and what they hope to get out of it and meeting new people and all of that. And but you laid it out really, really well. Find your people, find your position. And
Mhm.
I think that's wonderful. Megan, this has been fantastic. I love your style of speaking. I think you're so informative and you really have exceeded my expectations. Like I know you would. And we want you back. We
Thank
absolutely
you.
want you back. And so thank you very much for being with us. Your presentation won't be sent out, but the recording will be on the YouTube library, and you're going to have it, and you're going to put it on your website, I think, and which would be fun.
Yeah.
And it's like you all reach out to Megan. She's offering you this, free strategy session, and she has all these tools. Megan's got it going on, and so Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for
Thank you.
being with us. And I think we're seeing you next week. We have a speaker that will give us some legal updates in HR. So we'll hear about the latest HR rules and laws that people have to follow and employee protections, et cetera. But Megan, thank you so much. And
Thank
stay
you.
warm and stay warm to all of you. Stay safe. If you want to come to California, we're mid 60s and in
You don't need to rub it
what
in, Christy. I'm just saying.
hey, you're welcome here all the time.
But
And
it's beautiful. As long as you're in a warm home or a warm
yes,
place, it is
yes.
beautiful to look at. It's white and blankets of white everywhere. It's beautiful. It's
It
fine.
is beautiful. It is beautiful. Stay safe anyway and stay warm. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the day and the weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Okay.